Today we're looking at the third lesson of the Holy Spirit, which is to be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. So we went through the first two. The first one is to give all to all. The second is to have peace, teach peace to learn it. And now we're at the third. This is a major step towards fundamental change. Fundamental change is always of the mind. This is what the whole course is based on, changing the mind. That is the only meaningful change here. Yet it still has an aspect of thought reversal since it implies that there is something you must be vigilant against. So we must be vigilant against the ego thought system, being vigilant for God and his kingdom. As long as we still believe in choice, we must be first vigilant against the ego thought system because, practically speaking, the ego speaks first and loudest. The Course reminds us of this. But he also reminds us that the Holy Spirit always answers. So it's coming down to when those ego thoughts come up, to look at them without judgment, to look at them with the gentleness of the Holy Spirit and not denying them, but denying the ego's interpretation as best we can and giving them over to the Holy Spirit for correction. And then we can be vigilant only for God and his kingdom when the blocks to love's presence are removed. So it has advanced far from the first lesson, which is merely the beginning of the thought reversal. So the first lesson is to give all to all. This is the beginning of the thought reversal. And also from the second, which is essentially the identification of what is more desirable. So the second lesson is to have peace, teach peace to learn it. And this is essentially the identification of what is more desirable, because we come to recognize that the more and more we choose the Holy Spirit, the more and more we want it. And it's more desirable because the result is peace. And that the goal of this course is peace, and we all want peace and truth. We all want peace and truth. So this step, which follows from the second, as the second follows from the first, emphasizes the dichotomy between the desirable and the undesirable. It therefore makes the ultimate choice inevitable. So the ultimate choice for the Holy Spirit is the choice to be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. And the only way we can get to the kingdom is choosing through the Holy Spirit. And there's something helpful that I want to add to this from chapter 15. Chapter 15 It's a chapter on the holy instant. And it's section 3, littleness versus magnitude. I think this is so helpful. He reminds us in this section, I asked you earlier, would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? That is the question. Let this question be asked you by the Holy Spirit every time you make a decision. So, this is helpful to remember every time we make a decision, because decisions are continuous. We are making them all day long. We're either choosing between the ego thought system and the Holy Spirit thought system. And before you make a decision, ask, would you be hostage to the ego or host to God? That is a great question to ask yourself. Because I personally don't want to be trapped in that ego thought system or allow a seeming other to trap me in the ego thought system. And it is tempting at times to believe it because it seems so real, but it's only the belief in the story that makes it real. The story is not true. And that's what the Holy Spirit is teaching us. So let this question be asked you by the Holy Spirit every time, not sometimes, every time you make a decision. For every decision you make does answer this, and it invites sorrow or joy accordingly. So this is going to be in my back pocket like every day, every moment of the day. And I wanted to share that with you because ultimately we recognize that there is no choice. There's only one, there's only God. But until we are completely there, which is, it's a moment to moment practice. Forgiveness is constantly all day long. We're forgiving. If we're in our right mind, we're forgiving. We it's really bringing me to Ken Wapnick's quote that the operational definition for being in one's right mind is to look at the wrong mind without judgment. So that's what we're doing all day long if we're being the observer. If we're stepping back and letting Holy Spirit lead the way, we're not allowing these ego thoughts to control us. I am the decision maker. I am responsible for what I see, meaning I am responsible for which teacher I am listening to. I am the dreamer of the dream. And that's what we're learning here. And so this takes practice. This takes a lot of practice. And looking is it's so helpful because the ego would not look unless it looks with judgment and condemnation. That's the only way. The ego doesn't know any other way to look. So the Holy Spirit is the observing. It helps us to observe and look without judgment, and that makes it a lot easier. So while the first step seems to increase conflict, and the second step may entail conflict to some extent, this step calls for consistent vigilance against it. So the first step, I'm assuming he's talking about to have, give all to all, seems to increase conflict. And the second may still entail conflict to some extent. To have peace, teach peace, to learn it. This step calls for consistent vigilance against it. To be vigilant, to be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. I have already told you that you can be as vigilant against the ego as for it. This lesson teaches not only that you can be, but you must be. It does not concern itself with order of difficulty, but with clear cut priority for vigilance. This lesson is unequivocal in that it teaches there must be no exceptions, although it does not deny that the temptation to make exceptions will occur. Here, then, your consistency is called on despite the chaos. So, despite the chaos of the Holy Spirit, we're called on for the consistency. And this is where the second characteristic of God's teacher comes in. To be honest is to be consistent. It's being consistent in listening to the Holy Spirit, listening to the truth, knowing only truth is true. So we let those ego thoughts come and we let those ego thoughts go. And if we get trapped, or if we seem to get trapped and the temptation is there and we're believing these thoughts, the Course also tells us do not fight yourself. Meet yourself where you are. Be gentle with yourself. You will inevitably make room for truth because the ultimate choice is always inevitable. The outcome is as certain as God. We don't have to worry about the process. The process is perfect. And we just meet ourselves where we are and do the best we can. And this is being vigilant, because this is being vigilant for the gentleness of the Holy Spirit. And he says, yet chaos and consistency cannot coexist for long, since they are mutually exclusive. Consistency is of the Holy Spirit, and chaos is of the ego. They are diametrically opposed, mutually exclusive. As long as you must be vigilant against anything, however, you are not recognizing the mutual exclusiveness and still believe that you can choose either one. By teaching what to choose, the Holy Spirit will ultimately teach you that you need not choose at all. This will finally liberate your mind from choice, direct it towards creation within the kingdom. So, to be vigilant only for God and his kingdom, we recognize that there is no choice in God. God never changes his mind. It's the God, the lessons right now, the review lesson is my mind holds only what I think with God. This is the truth. And while we're here in form, our mind is going to wander, and it's okay. This is why we have forgiveness here in the world. And if you are able to listen to only one voice always, and you're never tempted by the body, and you never seem to have a choice, you're always in your right mind, please leave a comment and tell me, because I would love to hear about it and I would love to meet you. My experience is I constantly am tempted to listen to the ego. And sometimes I do still believe it for a little while, because sometimes I want to be right rather than happy. Sometimes I'd rather have the problem than the answer. And I'm not going to deny this. And the body, he tells us is we're not to deny the body. It's an unworthy form of denial. We meet it with gentleness. We don't deny any of it. We just do our best to deny the ego's interpretation and do our best to choose through the Holy Spirit who will always lead us to the truth. We always remember that. That is our protector. That is our guide. That is our comforter. So to close this, because there's really not a whole lot more I have to share, to be vigilant only for God and his kingdom is to remember that when you're vigilant for the ego, which is going to happen, that the ego still likes to speak first and loudest, don't believe it. That's being vigilant for God. Don't believe the ego. Look at it without judgment. Laugh at the absurdity. I think in the course it says somewhere about it's a quaint absurdity. And remember that it's everything's perfect now. And your safety is here, your safety is now. And the vigilance is not necessary for truth, but it is necessary against illusion. So just being vigilant against the ego is being vigilant for God and his kingdom. I'm just going to sum it up like that. And that is my experience. And I hope that it helps you. And together, as Jesus says in the course, together we are invincible. So on that note, have a great day.